Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2017 Pastega Awards ceremony for outstanding teaching and outstanding scholarship. It's a pleasure to have you all here, and it's going to be an enjoyable event to hear from two of our distinguished colleagues and the work that they are doing here at Western Oregon University. Unfortunately, we do not have any of the members of the Pastega family with us today. They could not get here today, but they send their congratulations to our faculty and really appreciate our celebrating Mario and Alma Pastega and the contributions that they made to the university. And on the back of your program, you can see that the Pastega Award celebration has been going on for quite some time, with the very first one being in scholarship in 1979, and the very first teaching one started in 1986. And in terms of what we do at this university, very important faculty roles of teaching and scholarship, it's very appropriate. With that, what I would like to do is to introduce Division Chair Mark Henkels, who is playing several duties today, both Division Chair of the division that both faculty happen to come out of this year, and then he's substituting for Interim Dean Rob Winningham, who could not be here today, as the joyful task that the Dean of the respective colleges have. So with that, I turn it over to Mark.
So the first person that's going to speak today significantly is Dr. Vivian Djokotoe. I almost said your old name. Dr. Vivian Djokotoe. And I got to tell you, when I saw those announcements come out, I was not surprised. I would like to say, I mean, it's wonderful to be surprised, but I could hardly think of anyone more predictable to have won this award sooner or later. And I just want to say a few things about her qualities that I've observed over a pretty long time now, and that really have stood out, and that are things that I continue to aspire to. And one of the things that really characterizes Vivian's approach is knowledge, a deep understanding of things. So she can speak with confidence about things. She can handle any issue that comes up in a classroom by being able to kind of dig underneath and think about, well, what is the bigger perspective here? And so she brings that quality. She also brings the quality of communication. And I really think all of us should go learn our English in Ghana. Nobody has better diction. Nobody has better sentence structure. Nobody can think through a whole idea and work their way to it more clearly. And it plays out well, of course, in her lectures, but she also writes very, very well, which is a really critical component if you teach a lot of classes online. Students need to know what they need to know, and that's not always easy to convey. They need to know what they have to do, and Vivian can do this better than, as well as anybody. Her classes are just off the chart, and she teaches the most difficult classes online, perhaps, social research classes, and students respond very enthusiastically. I also think it's important to note that she embraces newness. She sees what goes on and what's coming on. She understands student patterns and watches how students are evolving. And so she was really one of the earlier, most complete embraces of the possibilities of online, as well as in-class teaching. She's not one who went all one way or the other, but she thoroughly embraced the possibilities of both. And she really has led the department in developing a program which is really a model, if that's an element of what you want to develop. It's just a model for the possibilities for the student to take. And she furthermore, though, I think, continues to kind of evolve and adapt. And I think she really has a sense for what this generation of students like, which some of us struggle a lot more with, but she seems to continually connect with them. One of the things I do as division chair is sign all those extra forms to let people get out of requirements, you know, and whenever they come in to get out of requirements, so I do this hundreds of times a year, and every time they come in, I'll say, well, you know, what's the class you're enjoying? It's just striking how often Dr. Djokotoe comes through. I can't say the majority because we have many, many good teachers here, but social research has come up at least 3 times. How does that come up? You know, as a favorite class, it takes an extraordinary teacher. So she has these packages of skills and experience and a wealth of knowledge and adaptability. But the number one thing that comes out, and it comes out when I talk to students, is very clear when we talk to her advisees. Nothing counts for more around here than caring. The students know she cares. They know she reads, when she reads her papers, she's actually thinking about the student as she reads it. They have to take it seriously because they know she's taking it seriously. And it raises standards. It awakens slumbering curiosity. It motivates people to do things that when they're just going through the motions previously. So all the way around, I think it's just really inspirational that she got chosen. But now I think it's time to learn something. So I want to turn it over to the Mario Pastega winner of Teaching Excellence, Dr. Vivian Djokotoe.
I thank the university and its administration for this wonderful opportunity, and I thank the Pastega family for making this a possibility. First of all, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to my colleagues who make me a better teacher every day. I can't speak highly enough about where I work and who I work with, and that is my colleagues. And I'm happy to come to work every day because of these people. I have been molded a lot by my interactions with all of you in the hallways, in the social science building, and in the hallways of the criminal justice department. My colleagues in criminal justice are awesome, and I really enjoy working with you every single day. I also not want to forget to thank my family. I have the most awesome family. Hilda, my sister, is here with me today because my family is international. So my mom just got on the plane probably a month ago to go back to Ghana, and the others are in London or Ghana or someplace. Washington counts as out of country, right? No, Washington State. So Hilda is here representing them, and my dad, who would have gotten on a plane from Ghana to come to this event, passed away in 2000. So this month in 2000. So I'm sure wherever he is, he's proud of me because this is what he would have been proudest of. So today I want to talk to you about what inspires me as a teacher. When I was asked to give a topic for my speech, I was thinking, okay, so what do you tell a group of professors on a Thursday afternoon who are probably getting ready for dinner? You try to not be too academic. So that's what I try to do. I'm normally not academic anyway. One thing you would notice, for those of you who haven't spoken to me, I have an accent. That's because I come from Ghana, as Mark Henkels mentioned earlier. And so my only thing I say is, anytime I'm not laughing and you are laughing, you haven't heard what you think you've heard. Okay, so watch me for your clues for when to laugh. And I'll be sure to let you know. The only other rule which I give my students every term at the beginning of the term is, feel free to sleep if my voice puts you to sleep. And the contract is, I will find a nice way to wake you up without anybody noticing. If you snore, you're on your own. Okay? So the same thing applies to this group here today. So what inspires me as a teacher? For me, that question is also what inspires me as a person. Because I tend to describe myself as a teacher in a noun form rather than a verb form. That is who I am that is the only thing I can do. And so for me, when I'm teaching, teaching is an expression of who I am. And I happen to believe that teaching has a lot to do with relationships. It has to do with building strong relationships. Without strong relationships, teaching cannot happen. And there are many people in this room who have been my teachers. And so that kind of relationship I built with them is what has kept me going. So I think relationships are very important when we talk about teaching. So what happens when we build relationships with students? Let me just take this brief moment to apologize to some of my teachers I see here. Ed Dover, Mark Henkels, Dean Bray back there. I want to start by apologizing and letting you know I've forgotten every single thing I took in your class. I can't remember one thing right now that I took in your class. But what I remember and will never forget is your passion and the impact you left on me, which is what carries me every single day. So this is a thank you for this institution where I came from. This is a thank you to this division where I came from. And this is a thank you to this community that has so well embraced me. So a little bit about my journey, okay? I wanted to bring you some I was looking through my emails for comments that students often send me, and I get a lot of those, and I happen to just put them in a folder for bad days, so that whenever I'm having a bad day, I open that and I remember the reason I'm here and the impact I'm making on people. So the first one here is an email from a student, and it says, I remember so this person used my previous last name, so I blocked it out, okay? Because I don't want one more thing to keep that last name going, because I've struggled a lot to change my identity on this campus, and it's working, so I don't want to do anything that takes that back. So I blocked that out, okay? So just pretend that's Dr. Djokotoe, okay? I remember being in your class over a year ago. It was my first time back in the classroom in years. Let me tell you, I was nervous. I was nervous about failing your class. I remember you telling me I would do okay. You gave me the confidence I needed to succeed. Since that day, I have been doing okay. That's what gets me. I've been doing okay. I need 2 classes to finish my master's, and I will finish this fall. I will also add on a bilingual endorsement and will be starting my PhD at the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks this coming summer. I was supposed to start January 2nd, but the area is cold in the winter. So, you see, he learned very well. It's cold in the winter, so I decided to wait until spring to move. You are one of the best professors that I have met in this university. Thanks, Dr. Djokotoe. This was in August 2007. So looking at all of these comments, I couldn't, I had to bring a few. 3 of them, what I settled on. This one says, Vivian, you made me cry. And by the way, yes, I let them call me Vivian because that's about building relationships with them for me. Okay, so it's more about them respecting me than whatever they call me. So, Vivian, you made me cry. But I teach them the right way to write these things. Don't say, hey, Vivian, because that's not polite. Okay, so Vivian, you made me cry. I really did cry. So much in my life has been a struggle to achieve any forward motion. I have striven hard to remove myself out of the single-parent, state-funded hole I was in after my boys were born. Even though my boys are now adults, the struggle to become more than my situation is still a battle I am fighting. To have someone of your professional ilk verbalize their faith in my possible future is almost more than I can fathom. You are truly a gift to the students of Western Oregon University, and I thank whatever kismet brought you to this campus. So this is another one I got. I'm going to save you soon. This is the last one. Hello, Vivian. Oh, thank you very much. You are the best advisor of all the professors I've worked with in my 4 years at WU. You have helped me the most, and I really appreciate your care and commitment to your students. Once again, thank you very much. So these are examples of what students say, and I see that as the biggest payoff for me, because that is what I would be doing with my life. That is what matters more to me than anything else I do. So this woman right here that I have brought on here to show you is the person who inspires me. So this woman is Ghanaian, and her story about wanting to be educated is really extraordinary. She comes from the northern part of Ghana, where education wasn't as available. She grew up when Ghana was still a colony of the British administration. And so people were afraid to take their kids to school. She went to school because the government said any household that didn't at least have one child in school was going to be in trouble. So somebody had to go, and she was brave enough to step forward. Her grandmother didn't like that very much because they still remembered when giving away their children meant they were going to end up on boats to be sent away. So that wasn't a very easy thing. So this woman went to school, walked to school, walked long distances to go to school, didn't stop. Once she found out the value of education, she did not stop. She went on to go to high school and became the first person from the Northern Territories in Ghana, the first woman to make it to the University of Ghana, which is, well, to make it to university, period, and University of Ghana no less. So this woman really inspires me in many ways. She went on from being the first woman from the north to go to the University of Ghana to her medical profession, where she would do things beyond just treating patients. She would later on come to set up her own practice and reach out to villages where no doctors exist in order to save lives. She saved many, many lives. She's had many awards. And in this picture, you see her training people who themselves would then go out and provide health care in the most remotest part of the country. So this is a woman who went to school against all odds and did not just end up with a job, but ended up living her passion. I've been around her and I've seen that nothing drives her more than being able to do and to change people's lives around her. This woman is my mother. The woman I just talked about is my own mother. So that is my first inspiration. This is the person, so that's me, by the way. Okay, and it's my favorite picture because in the Black community, I was sporting my TWA, Teeny Weeny Afro. Okay, so that's me. And if you are thinking, by the way, who is that in the middle? That's me in the evolution of my Afro, okay, towards this. So that is my mother. So when I was born and when I started to grow up, I knew that if there was one thing that people talked about. People actually, my teachers sometimes asked, do you even know your mother? When I would do something silly at school, like not get everything right. Do you even know your mother? And I'll say, yeah, I know her. She lives in my house. And and she tells me I can do whatever I want to do. I shouldn't be pressured by anybody. And that's true. That's what she told us. But the value of education was really stressed in my house. And there was nothing we could complain about as siblings, and there were 5 of us, all female, by the way. So there were 5 of us in the house, and all of us knew that nothing could be a barrier for us. If our mother had to go through what she went through, then nothing was difficult enough for us. We didn't have any excuses. Went back. So that gown is a gown that hung in her closet, and I promised her I was going to wear that gown. I really wanted, more than anything in the world, to wear that gown. So I kept the gown, and then at matriculation, when I made it to the University of Ghana, went to the same hall of residence that she was in, I wore that gown for my matriculation. And for me, that was all I needed. I had made it. But while I was in the University of Ghana, I'd like to point out that my professors were a different kind of professors. They were not like us. To make it in to the University of Ghana was a very difficult feat. But once you made it there, you were not there to learn. Now, looking back, you were there to prove that you earned the right to be there. And so the professors, I think I tell my sister, it's almost like the glasses they wore were designed for them to see things to read, but not to see people. So a relationship, that was out of the question. Okay, so I looked at these very intelligent people on this campus, very prestigious, but I had no desire in me to be a teacher because of what I saw, because there was no relationship at all. So, long story short, I make it to Ghana, to the United States. But before I left Ghana, I had the opportunity to work through a field experience with a UNICEF organization for at-risk youth. So I went to work with them, and it was then that my eyes opened for the first time, because I was shocked about what I saw. I thought growing up that everybody had what I had, what my sisters had, what our friends had. We had the best schools, we had the best education, we had the best education money could buy. I thought everybody had the same situation until I saw these kids and realized something that my parents had never been able to teach me: empathy. So that began to be my drive for what I will be in the future. So I wanted to help people. I had found that out. That was my life's purpose. So I moved from there to the United States for my own journey towards self-actualization. That's me right there with other international students on this campus. That was a very rich experience. I was about to experience another kind of professor, because up to this point, my idea of a professor was somebody who was scary. My very first term on this campus, I was in Ed Dover's class. I was in Dean Bray's class. Okay. and Dean, I promise you, I don't have any Nikes on. So I realized that these professors, of course I was afraid of them because they are professors. That's what you're supposed to do. But then soon enough, I realized that these were people who knew what they were talking about, and there was a passion to what they were talking about. Not to talk about the fact that they actually knew we existed as students. So that was an eye-opener. And I thought, okay, I was already a political science minor, so I was going to go for sociology because of Dean Bray. So Peter Calero was chair then. I went to talk to Peter Calero, and to be honest with you, I never talked to any professor that kind. He was very kind to me, and I felt I didn't know what to say. So I thought, okay, it's sociology for me. But then Peter gave me the bad news, is that I only had 3 terms to go, and fall term was already over, and I couldn't have started a thesis. So I went to the social science division and talked to Dr. Shea Roshani, Dr. Roshani Shea. What surprised me the most is what she did. She looked at my transcripts, and the first thing she said was, "Wow, you got an A in Ed's class?" So it was as if I had earned the help now because I had gotten an A in Ed's class. So instead of Dr. Roshani sending me along to the next person, because I came to talk to her about my desire to engage in an internship. So she took my hand and walked me to Mark Henkel's office and spoke to him directly. Mark Henkel's was very gracious. I had to work within the restrictions of immigration rules as a foreign student. Mark Henkel's was very flexible and actually helped me. It's because of Mark Henkel's that today I'm in criminal justice. And that is the truth. Because Mark Henkel's made it possible for me to go and work at the Children's Farm Home, where I would work directly with at-risk youth, which will begin my eye-opening experience into the world of criminal justice. So that happened, and then it began. So now I had met two sets of street children, two sets of at-risk youth, one in Ghana, one in the United States. So I was beginning to see the possibility of working here as well. So I'll go on to get my degree and be back here at Western, got my PhD, I'll be back at Western to teach. So on this here, you see Kim Jensen's name up there. So there's Kim, there's Mary Pettinger, there's me, of course. Then you have Molly Mayhead, and you have Emily Pleck. And there was Jean Butcher, who also went to this bowling game. So a number of people had been invited. This was the group that could make it. So we go to bowl. I had never bowled. Okay, so this is my score. I got a 70, okay, and so you can see, okay, but the good, teachers have to be good liars sometimes, okay, you have to lie to your students sometimes until they believe it. So they all wrote these nice things for me on the, as if I couldn't read the numbers myself. So this is something that I had laminated, which stays in my office all the time. It's one of the things I look at, and I remember who received me when I came. It was a community. I was accepted. I was part of this group of people I respected so much. And that, by the way, has continued, where I now can count on people like Diane Baxter right here, Diane Tatter, and a bunch of other people who are here for me, who I know I can put on my speed dial. So what does it mean for me to be a teacher? Being a teacher to me is about empathy, respect, understanding, passion, and purpose. So I have these quotes. And by the way, when I was informed that I had won this award, Hillary contacted me and asked whether I had any favorite quotes. And I said, do I? Okay, I have too many favorite quotes, okay? I live my life through quotes. So the first one, which guides most of the things I do, says, be kind to everyone you meet. Be kind, everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Okay, so that is something that guides me. Whether it's my students, whether it's my colleagues, I am keenly aware of the fact that we all, just by living, have problems. We all, by living, have things that we are pushing against. And so every time I have the opportunity to interact, to me, that is an opportunity to lighten someone's burden just a little bit. Okay, so that's what I do for my students. So it's normally very gratifying when students write to me and use the word, you cared about me. That speaks to me, because that to me is my life's purpose, is to empathize and to reach people. So that's one of the things that speaks to me as a teacher. The other one is speak in a manner that people want to listen, and listen in a manner that people want to speak. This is about respect. So when I go into my classroom, I tell my students the very first day, you don't have to like me. I'm not requesting that of you. but you're going to respect me and I'm going to respect you. And through that, a relationship gets built that then becomes more fulfilling than anything. He who dares to teach must never cease to learn. For me, this doesn't talk about me learning my material and being able to teach it. Yes, that's part of it. But it's about learning about people, learning about the things that people are dealing with. For me, I was this international student from Ghana. It was very easy for somebody to look at me as an inconvenience, as a person who has a filter that needs to be broken through. It was very easy to be discarded. Okay, I'm very mindful of that. And so I try to understand the people I deal with, because there's no way you can empathize with people if they are just a number. This is why I get to know the names of my students, every single one of them, and I call them by name. It's very difficult to not connect when a person relates to you as a person. So that's another thing I do. The last thing is, what the teacher is more important than what he teaches. This I also believe, because I have evidence of it right here in this room. That is why I started by telling my teachers, I don't remember what you said. I really don't. I don't remember any real material in your classrooms, but I remember how I felt with you. I remember how you made me feel. And so you are bigger than you think. You're bigger. Everybody has been touched by a teacher. There are people who lead their lives thinking that they are A students or B students or C students. Who told them that? Only a teacher is able to put a label on a person that guides the rest of their life's trajectory. And so I'm very mindful of that. And I got that from the people here on this campus as well, as a student myself. So it's my responsibility to give it to my students. So the last one says, a teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. So everybody has a favorite teacher. Everybody has that teacher who molded them in one way or the other. Everybody has a teacher who at some point said, you can do it, and so they did. Okay. So teachers are very powerful. Teachers are more powerful than we think we are, and I'm very mindful of that. And on this campus, there are some great teachers who have molded my life. During graduation, when I graduated from Western, this is not me, by the way, graduating, but when I graduated from Western, I remember going through that line, that faculty forms. And I had been here for just a little over a year when I graduated, because I had completed most of my credits from the University of Ghana. So when I was going through that line, I didn't realize that anybody even remembered me. Remember my story about the professors back home in Ghana. And so I walked through that line, and I remember, like yesterday, Molly Mayhead. Molly Mayhead was in that line, and she yelled out, "Good job, Vivian. That has been quick." I still remember that. I don't remember who the commencement speaker was. I don't remember what was said at commencement. I remember that. The same Molly Mayhead who in my bowling picture was right there to welcome me back here, was there for me then. And that left an impact. So we never know how much we matter in the lives of other people. I can say that for a fact. And yes, I'm an excellent teacher. Yes, I'm a pretty darn good teacher. But that's because of all the teachers who made me so. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we need Vivian to talk every week, don't you? We need this every week. Thank you, Vivian. That was lovely. So the next speaker will be Dr. Eliot Dickinson, who is the Pastega Award winner for scholarly excellence for this year. And I'd just like to say about Eliot, He's produced I was looking at his resume, and it's quite a significant body of work, of course. He's written about Copts, the Christian Copts from Egypt, living in Michigan and their adaptation. He's written about the German parliament. He's written about immigration into Germany. He's written about South Africa and civil rights. He's written about, recently, he has a book just came out on migration, international migration. He has another book that he's currently working on and under contract. And you look at that and you go, wow, how do they do this stuff? How do they do so much? And I can tell you two things that I think contribute, in my opinion and my observation. One is coherency. If you look at his interests, although they really are different topics in ways, there's links between them all. There's human rights through it all. There's questions of citizenship. There's questions of migration. And there's questions of boundaries. And these things come up time and time again in one form or another. And they interact, and I think he's developed a larger vision about how these things relate. And then he can think about things in a more holistic manner and apply it in different contexts, I think, with great ease or facility. And it's really admirable. The other thing, though, is these are the logical explanations of publications. But as anybody who's done any writing knows, man, you got to have drive. You have to have some kind of passion or fear or something motivating you. And Eliot, there's a great congruency also between Eliot's work and his life experience. He's come a long ways from Kettle Falls, small town upstate Washington, and he has lived in Austria extensively, Spain extensively, mostly while walking around, and he's lived in Germany significantly, Netherlands significantly, and he had a significant sojourn as a postdoc in South Africa. So his life experience is one of crossing boundaries, of encountering questions of citizenship, and definitely, and sometimes, really confronting the challenges of migration and civil rights. But the congruency doesn't just end in his life experience and his academic entrance. The congruency really runs deepest in what his values, his personal motivations, what he cares about is. Eliot, as most of us probably know, is really passionate about peace, and a peace motivated, and a peace that can come about because of the search of justice. And when you look at his work, whether it's directly dealing with that or dealing with it in an oblique way, it connects to that notion. And before I turn it over, I just want to say, may that search for peace and the drive to instill that as a curriculum topic on this campus continue. So now, time for me to migrate off stage. Eliot Dickinson.
Thanks, Mark. Vivian, I can really relate to what you're saying, especially about your mom. This is my mom's birthday today, May 11th, so she's on my mind quite a lot. And it reminds me of, anyone who ever achieved anything in their life had somebody that believed in them. And for me, that was my mother. And lots of other people. My wife many times said, when I was struggling to write, she said, you can do it. And then my colleagues, the people at this table, and everybody in this room, so thank you. In 2015, I spent a year, 2014-15 sabbatical year, as a visiting scholar at the University of Vienna Department of Government. And that just happened to be the year that over 1 million refugees came to Europe. And it happened to be the year that I signed a book contract, also kind of by happenstance. And that process of getting the contract was very long. It took 6 months of back and forth with very picky editors to actually have them accept it. And they wanted all sorts of stuff, and they were never satisfied, including a sample chapter. And then it took me 9 months of writing almost every day. Even when we went on our honeymoon in Italy, we had this beautiful villa overlooking the green hills of Tuscany, and I had a couple of files there with me, and I wrote on my book several hours every day, even then. And then after that, there were 6 months of editing. And so, yeah, you do have to be driven by something. And I think that George Orwell put it right. He said, writing a book is a horrible, exhausting struggle. And it's like a bout with some painful illness. And you would never undertake it unless you are driven by some demon. A demon that you can neither resist nor understand. I mean, that's kind of what it was like for me. But I realized too, after I've come out the other end and I've done this, I had something to say. I had something to write, and I said what I had to say. And it's in this book, and I feel good about it now. And I was able to kind of capture the tone that I wanted to say it in, and I had found the words to do it, and I felt like I did it at the right time. I did it when there was over 1 million people coming to Europe. And I did it, the book was published 6 months prior to our absolutely disastrous election. And, I called out our president using his own words a year in advance, quoting him on the ugly things he said about migrants. And I was happy to do that. Sadly, nobody took my advice, or at least every second American didn't, roughly. So anyways, if we look at global migration, these are the patterns. What you've got is a global south and a global north. The north is rich and industrialized, and the south is poor and non-industrialized. And you can see very clearly the pattern. People are heading north, and they're going from Africa and the Middle East to Europe, and they're going from Central America and Mexico to North America. And there are exact reasons for this. The North, Europe, let's say, is the core of the global economy, and Africa is very much the periphery. And the people are fleeing poverty and war and climate change. And those are the drivers of global migration. And if we look to Europe more specifically, these are some of the routes that you have. Western, Central, Eastern Mediterranean, and East African. More specifically, there's a Balkan route as well. And when Barbara and I were living in Vienna, we lived in the 10th district. There are 23 districts in Vienna, and the 10th is known as an immigrant district. And so everywhere there were immigrants from all over the world, a lot of Eastern Europeans, a lot of Middle Easterners, even Africans. And I couldn't walk down the street without running across the whole world practically. So as I was writing, I felt like I was kind of living amongst them, and after all, I was a migrant too. So the people who were coming up through the Balkan route from the Middle East and also from Africa were passing through Vienna, usually on their way to Germany. So a lot of people stayed in Austria, but usually they were trying to get to Germany or Sweden or Holland or elsewhere in Europe. Here's the Balkan route that I was talking about. And Vienna, I think, is on the front lines of that. And this is where they're going, mostly to Germany, also Hungary. A lot of people get registered in Hungary but want to move on, though, because Germany is much more generous. Sweden is, Holland is, Austria is, Western Europe is. And this is where they're coming from. Now they're coming from Syria. Well, 2015, most came from Syria, followed by Afghanistan and Iraq. And I don't need to point out to you guys that last month we dropped the mother of all bombs. That's the largest bomb ever dropped, non-nuclear. It's one of the largest bombs in the American arsenal, a 22,000-pound bomb on Afghanistan. And these are some of the poorest people on earth. And if we're ever wondering why they are refugees, that's why. If we're wondering why so many people are coming from Iraq, well, we invaded that country. They had nothing to do with 9/11. And we invaded that country and we occupied it. Now, 1 million Iraqis are dead, perhaps. Nobody knows exactly. So if we're wondering why these refugees are coming, well, that's why. Of course, we all know, too, that the war in Syria is an extension of the war in Iraq. So it's not like we haven't played a role. The thing is, here in the States, we don't see refugees a lot, but in every major city in Europe, you do. On the streets of Vienna, you do. And this is what they were leaving, a bombed-out place. Lots of violence of the kind that we can't even fathom, thankfully. Now, that's a type of post-apocalyptic hell, I think. No wonder why people are leaving. I would, too. And I just hope that I wouldn't pick up a gun if I were in that situation and join the resistors or something like that. I would like to think I would just head to Germany. it's important to put a face on these people. We say, okay, 1 million people died. 5 million Syrians are refugees. Well, who are these people? Here they are. Real people with real lives. Just like you and me. That could be us. A lot of these Syrians and Iraqis and Afghans and people from farther afield are hopping in little rubber boats and trying to get to Greece usually, or maybe Italy. And then, since they don't usually want to stay there, they want to go farther north, and they just ditch their stuff if they can make it. But not everybody makes it, and I think we all know that. Thousands of people have died in the Mediterranean over the last couple of years. The Kurdi family was trying to get to Canada, but they didn't have papers. And it's quite a melee once they arrive. Thankfully, we don't live in Athens. We don't see the refugees in front of us. But if we did live in Athens, we would see this. Pope Francis just a couple of weeks ago said that the camps in Europe resemble the concentration camps of World War II. I don't know how good that comparison is really, but it does make you think. It's really a stream of humanity. These were people in 2015 walking through, Croatia and Slovenia. So they would have passed into Austria, and a lot of them would have felt, okay, I've made it to Western Europe, I'll stay here. Others would have kept going. If they had family in Germany, they would have gone there. Or Sweden is also one of the most generous. But, I think that a lot of these countries are hitting their limit. I don't know how many more people they will take. 1 million people in Germany is an awful lot of people. So there are multiple routes, and they're coming from all over. They're also coming from Africa, a lot of these war zones in Africa. There's also the western route from Morocco into Spain. And Spain actually has 2 little cities, 2 little enclaves that are actually in Morocco, Ceuta and Melilla. And these are Spanish outposts in Africa. They belong to Spain. They're Spanish cities. And they've been Spanish for 500 years. But once you get onto that territory, you'd think you were in Morocco, but you're actually entering Spain. Once you get over the fence into these little enclaves, you're in European Union territory. And once that happens, a lot of laws kick in. You should be entitled to an asylum procedure. You should be able to claim political asylum. That doesn't always happen, though. A lot of people are trying to get to Lampedusa, the southernmost island in Italy. It's 180 miles due north of Libya. And these people, as we all know, are hopping into unseaworthy boats and heading north. And it's 180 miles, but if they make it 18 miles, they're lucky. And some of them capsize even before that. Images like this get put on the front pages of European newspapers all the time. I don't know how many times I saw that in Austria. It's an interesting image because it kind of scares a lot of people, like in Europe. They live very stable, very wealthy lives. And you see these faces, and they're desperate, and so many are coming. And some people are afraid of that because they wonder, when will this end? Now, here are some pictures of the fences that surround Melilla and Ceuta, the 2 Spanish enclaves. Africans usually try and storm the fence en masse, like 500, 1,000 people at a time, and they throw themselves over the other side. But in the meantime, last few years, they've built not 1 fence, but 2, and now a 3rd fence. So that you have to pass 3 fences in order to get into Spanish territory. And a lot of these have razor wire at the top and guards patrolling. And now they're 20 feet high, 6 meters high. If we want to know what building a wall on our southern border is going to be like, this might give you an idea. If we do go through a 2,000-mile wall between us and Mexico, people are going to get over it or under it or around it. And a lot of them will probably hurt themselves doing it. this picture is in Melilla, and it's one of the more bizarre pictures because this golf course was funded by millions of dollars through the European Union, and this golf course is just completely unnatural. It shouldn't be there. It's in the middle of a desert, and it's soaking up all that water. And what you see here is the juxtaposition between the haves and the have-nots, wealthy Europe and poor Africa. You see these presumably wealthy Europeans golfing, very gracefully, swinging the golf club and then preparing maybe for a cocktail afterwards. And then you've got the Africans that are up on the fence biding their time before they jump over. And that really kind of sums up the whole situation. Now, I'll leave you with these images, and I'll just move on to what is to be done, the famous question. Well, this is what I've written. I think we need to bring economic globalization under democratic control. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of corporations who have gotten very powerful, and what they want is deregulation and privatization. And actually, I don't know if you can see the headline of this, but it says, "Poor to be hit hardest." This is from last month's Oregonian. And this is the effect of our healthcare law. If they get their way, tens of millions of people kicked off of healthcare. That's what I'm talking about. Tax cut for the rich and the poor get hit hardest. Well, a lot of these corporations, they want deregulation and privatization. They want lower taxes. They want to stash their money offshore. And, if we live in a democracy, we should be able to change that. We should be able to bring that money home. We should be able to tax these corporations so that they pay something back to society. And it's gotten extreme. And I don't need to tell my brother Dean this, or any of you guys, because you all know it. But inequality in the world is really, really extreme. In 2010, according to Oxfam International, 388 billionaires in the world had as much wealth as 3.5 billion of the poorest people on the planet. Well, that got worse. In 2015, 80 people had as much wealth as the bottom half of humanity. Well, this year, 8 billionaires have as much wealth as 3.5 billion of the poorest people on the planet. That's what I'm talking about. We need to bring that back under control, and we can do it if we live in a democratic society, I think. We need to stop the military-industrial complex. Wars create refugees. It's as simple as that. If you're wondering why all these people are leaving their homes, they don't really want to, but they're leaving war zones. And a lot of the companies that make these weapons are American. Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, Raytheon. They are making weapons. They profit from war, and they're dealing in death. And in a democratic society, we have to be able to stop that. But these are old lessons, actually. Dwight Eisenhower, in 1953, he said, "Every gun that's made, every warship that's launched, every rocket fired signifies in its final sense a theft from those who are hungry." Pretty simple, This probably ought to be number one, but the planet is melting down, and we've got forest fires and droughts and rising oceans and melting ice caps and so on. And the reason that global refugees are leaving their homes is because they can't live there anymore. The water is rising. They're getting flooded out. They can't farm during a drought, and they pick up and leave. And that's also what happened in Syria. It was a threat multiplier. It made everything worse. And I guess I would say that, in Africa, I learned that there's an ancient African belief that the ecological health of the planet is directly linked to the spiritual health of the people. Well, something's wrong with the planet, and I think spiritually we have our struggles too. So it is a moral question. It's a spiritual question. It's not just an economic question. It's not just some political question, but it's everything. So we need a green revolution, quick. It's long overdue. We need to live sustainably. Well, we need to support the United Nations, and my colleague Mary is all over this, and the students on this campus seem to understand that too usually. The UN, it offers real ways to tackle the root causes of a lot of these problems. And they do it through a lot of agencies and funds and programs. The World Health Organization, the World Food Program, the High Commission for Refugees, the Children's Fund, the Women's Fund, the Environment Program, it goes on and on. And those are run really cheap. You know, we shouldn't be spending another $54 billion on the military, but we should spend that money on the UN, I would say, if we really want to help humanity. And then we can reallocate money from these billionaires that I was talking about back to the people who really need it. And we can close loopholes. You know, we can stop all of this offshore hiding of money that was exposed in the Panama Papers recently, or in the Cayman Islands and elsewhere. And we can only really do that, I think, if we raise awareness. But I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, because that's what you and I do every day. I mean, I do that in my classes. I talk about this stuff all the time. And the students seem to get it. But with this current administration, you know, I don't know what to say. I mean, our president, President Trump, is ignorant. And he's scientifically illiterate. And he's dishonest. He's a liar. He's petty and vindictive and authoritarian. And the list goes on, you know. He's narcissistic to an extreme degree. He's dangerous. And that's what we will have to put up with for the next 4 years or so. And it's quite a depressing picture if you think about it, after all we've worked for all these years. But maybe that just leaves us to do something on our own campus. What can we do? Well, we can reach out to our Hispanic students, for example, and let them know that we support them when they're living in this time of fear and their families are under threat of getting deported. You know, we can do what we can to stop the military-industrial complex. We can stop glorifying war. For one, let's start there. When the military academy down the street leaves in the fall, why don't we name that building not the Oregon Military Academy, but the Oregon Peace Academy? Yeah. It's in our power if we want it, you know, peace if you want it. Why don't we name it the Martin Luther King Oregon Peace Academy? Ain't gonna study war no more. Why don't we divest from fossil fuels at this university? Our endowment. Let's divest that fully. We can do it if you want it. Let's put solar panels on all the roofs of this campus. Yeah. There are a lot of other things we could do, and I know we're doing them already. When one of our students joins the Peace Corps, Brother John, let's recognize them on the football field when they graduate. Yeah. So I could go on, but I'll spare you the details, and I guess I'll leave you with this thought that we can build solidarity and not walls.
What I did want to do is take an opportunity to highlight both Vivian and Eliot and the symbolic representation they are of the faculty here at Western Oregon University. And what is the role of a university? It is a place to have open discussion, to touch on sensitive topics, but to also touch on those topics in a very informed intellectual debate that is fact-driven. And one of the most powerful things that we as faculty accomplish through scholarship, that you know Eliot's scholarship informs his teaching, and Vivian's emotional bond with students informs her scholarship and the type of research that she does. That here at Western, we don't just have researchers, we don't just have teachers, we really have teacher scholars. And in my mind, one of the most valuable products that we do generate at this institution is our hope that these students walking across the commencement stage in red caps and gowns are more critical thinkers are going to be able to go out into society and apply the kind of knowledge that they gained here at Western. Congratulations to our 2 Pastega Award winners, and it's a pleasure to be at this institution with you. Thank you all.